Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the True Life Podcast. I hope everybody is having a beautiful day. I hope the sun is shining. I hope the birds are singing and the wind is at your back. I got a great show for you today. I have with me the incredible Jaqueline Oliveira-Cella. And I want to just take a moment to welcome this extraordinary conversation that I think will leave every one of you rethinking the very fabric of health and wellness in the workplace. Today we have Today, we have the honor of speaking with Jaqueline. She's a visionary leader whose career is a testament to the power of strategic innovation in healthcare. With over 15 years of experience that spans the globe, she has made her mark in some of the world's most influential companies, including World Bank Consulting, AIG, WTW, Colgate, Aon, and IBM. Her expertise isn't just about understanding the complexities of health, employee benefits, and insurance. It's about transforming these intricate systems into actionable, client-centric solutions that bridge the gap between employee well-being and corporate growth. Her journey is one of passion and purpose. As the founder of wellBe Consulting, she has been at the forefront of co-creating and advising corporations on cutting-edge health and well-being strategies. Her work goes beyond business. It's a mission to redefine the way we think about health at work, blending financial well-being with a deep understanding of population health management. But Jaqueline's impact doesn't stop there. She is also the force behind Health at Work, a nonprofit initiative designed to disseminate actionable knowledge that boosts both employee health and corporate sustainability. From tackling issues like diabetes, menopause, and mental fitness to addressing the broader challenges of burnout, inclusion, and our evolving relationship with food. Jaqueline is redefining what it means to care for people in the workplace. Jaqueline, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
Oh, good. That was a long introduction. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here and to share whatever knowledge and wisdom I can share and learn as well. I think that's a two-way street. So thank you for the very kind and warm introduction.
The pleasure's all mine. You have an incredible CV and you've been working a long time and you've seen the complexity of healthcare system from a lot of different angles. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today a little bit. Maybe we can just start off a little bit. Is there anything you wanted to share in the beginning before we kind of start diving into some issues?
Why don't I start with a recent experience
Please.
that I had uh, like just a few weeks ago. I returned from a volunteering opportunity where I was on site along with other three volunteers with Tracking for Kids. Um, Maybe I can share a little bit about that. That was let's say a highlight for my summer, and I'm sharing with the intent of helping others to see that there are different ways to volunteer. So I will also touch upon that and what happens when you do so, why it's so relevant on a corporate world that we think about how to promote such practices. So I feel now, it feels like yesterday, but it was a mid August, I had the opportunity to go to the continent, like the region, the African region. And specifically, I took a few days for myself in Kenya, and just a gorgeous place with something surreal for whoever has never been on a space where animals that we see on the zoo walk freely and you are the one on a cage. I I couldn't. And the people, like, it just shows a different reality. And I'm Brazilian, so I'm an actuary from Brazil. um and so poverty, it's not something that I'm unfamiliar with, right? But it's just um a different reality than what most of us live, like in the United States, for example, my home now. Um, and the actual mission. with this group called Tracking for Kids, and I would recommend others to check them out. Was in Mozambique, in a like in Nampula, right? And I think it's what marked me. What There are a lot of moments where, so here are my takeaways. There are a lot of moments on a journey where there are hiccups with um, things that were not working accordingly to what you expect, right? So I'm not going to bore with all the details, but there are so until I got into the mission, there are so many moments where I had to pause and really check on what was going on with my emotions. Am I getting worked up? And if I continue to be, I have the right to be upset. It's my right, it's my emotion. But could I be using something else? What are the other tools? So that moment, in terms of takeaways, that we can put on our day to day at work and else, those moments where you are able to become aware of the feelings you're having, uh, and then you reframe that into, how can I see from the lens of the others, the people that I actually need help with, and find a way to be assertive, but at the same time to bring their attention to act to help me, right? So that was like over and over throughout the trip. I had that like rethinking.
Right.
So that's the number one. It's like the creating the volunteering opportunity, going on my own and meeting with the group there. There are several times where I had the opportunity to practice. It doesn't come easily to practice being aware of my emotions and reframing it over and over. And that's like how a lot of the meditations, right?
Right.
So when you think about meditating and etc., that's a pathway. It's hard to be. I'm not aiming for perfection, but I'm aiming for a state where people can see the best in me, right? It doesn't need to be nice or polite. It's just whoever I am, right, at that particular moment. But it's also that I have the intention of uplifting the person across from me, right? Figuring out what can we together gain on this situation. So that's one, the pause, the reflection, the action. Then second is when I was actually on the mission, uh, I was feeling very safe while around the nuns. They
Mm-hmm.
were like um, uh, really like very enlightened people. Like it's like people who dedicated their entire life for the good, like for the improvement of others' lives in such difficult circumstances. And I was able to see two things. One, the mission where 50 girls are staying and being sheltered and being fed and kind of learning, giving the opportunities. We talk so much about inclusion and diversity. You got to give the opportunity for them to actually be included, feel that they belong. So those kids, those 50 girls, age from 5 to 19, they were given that opportunity. And I say that particularly when I look into the other side. So we have the mission where the girls were staying, and we visit the actual communities. This particular mission supports around 144 communities, and by supporting means teaching them how to care for the land, teaching, bringing bring to them knowledge that they can use so they don't starve, and action like helping with the right partners, helping to find water, right? Because dry, it's like this is not having water is one of the main issues in that particular region. And you can see where the kids are coming from. Those are the communities that the kids on the mission were coming from. And that creates the whole appreciation for why the kids are so thankful, so grateful for that opportunity. And so that's dichotomy between where they are coming from and what are you doing with the opportunities that you're giving, right? That's like for me a very powerful um, learning in terms of what you get out of it and how you can apply that on your day to day with your if you're truly interested in making people feel in a like make create a safe space where people can actually innovate and create. You gotta build that like state of trust. You gotta build the state of feeling grateful for something, for someone. And I was in awe of those four nuns working on
Yeah.
the mission. The third piece is when you're volunteering, of course, when you are volunteering, of course, you take time away from your family. In my case, I did, right? So it's like it's selfish to some extent. Um, Even though it's like my intent was, what can I do while I'm there to be useful for those kids, even if it's to give like to give love or to listen to them, play with them, or clean walls or build walls. So the other part of the takeaway is you come back with your energy tank filled, and the people you volunteer with, you create an additional bond because you see them like day after day sleeping out together. It's
Right.
like it's a different bond that you create with that group of volunteers. um, I'm fortunate that I was brought into this group by one of like my mentors who I have worked with in the past, and I will keep coming. So, what my call for action when I think about corporations, a lot of the large corporations are already enabling paid time off for volunteering. But think about, and I have had the fortune on my prior employer to actually launch like paid time off
Nice.
focus on volunteering, volunteerism. And the intent was that people could volunteer as a team, as a group. Um, and that on itself creates the mental fitness that we are so, uh, that we keep seeking, right? That I'm not even going to say happiness. It's more
Right.
like your mental fitness, you're like grounded. You feel like you're part of this community of individuals that are purpose driven, right? So that's my, I don't know if you have any questions, like you want to explore
Mhm.
further. That's the, those are my, that's like, again, uh, of like how it's made, like being part of this volunteering opportunity made me feel like what was the outcome of the past 15 days or so, and the call for action, right? So it's like rethink what's like how time is used in a manner. Sometimes mental fitness, it's fantastic that companies are offering mental health care
Right.
like as part of their employee benefits, and that they are more proactive at supporting that employees use that, like if needed, use that service. On the other hand, there are different ways to deliver mental fitness. You can have a culture that enables learn it all. I think, like, if I'm not mistaken, the Microsoft CEO uses to like has mentioned. But more than that, it's a culture that people, that individuals are not there only for themselves. They are there to really uplift others as they are progressing in their careers, right? You think about the people manager role and etc. And I know a mental fitness too could, why not volunteering as a team? Why not seeing people in action, how they actually, what they get out of that experience, right? And measure. I believe
Yeah.
in I'm a data driven person, and measure that. There are plenty
Right.
studies talking about how that's the importance of that. And volunteer, it's not just on site. You can be volunteering as a mentor, or you can volunteer, and that takes me to the second part of our conversation. I will promise I will pause, which is why I volunteer my time and I engage others to volunteer with me. By others, means industry experts and field experts that actually are the ones building the wisdom behind health at work and people. So let me pause.
It's wonderful. I the idea of getting the opportunity to go to a place where you can become part of the solution, even if it's just for a short time, and getting to make a difference in someone's lives. There's no doubt that that has a radical effect on how you see the world. And it would be amazing if more people could get that opportunity to do that. I'm wondering, how long does that effect last? Because if you go there for like a month or 2 months and you're around all these incredible people, you come back, you have some really different feelings about, you might start feeling a little bit guilty for all the things that you have, or you might start thinking like, wow. But maybe you could speak to the idea of how you felt when you come back and how long that feeling of empathy and well-being lasted once you got back.
Interesting question. I can turn that question around.
Please.
Imagine when you go, like, tell me, what do you feel when you go on a trip, like when you travel, and you had really an amazing time on that travel, on that like you create memorable experiences, and you are back, and now you are back at work, and life goes on. Everything else was happening while you're having those memorable experiences. How does that make you feel?
Sometimes disappointed in the environment in which I live. It makes me see myself in a way of, maybe I'm not doing enough, or maybe I'm in an environment where there's not a whole lot of opportunities, or maybe I'm in an environment where people aren't really thankful for all that they have. And maybe that's the catalyst for making big changes in your life or changing your environment. But that, I love going on those big trips, and I love getting to see the world through a different lens and experience myself in a different way in a new environment. But coming back sometimes is like, you get that sort of dip, like, oh, that was beautiful. How do I do more? But I think it's a catalyst for change.
Yes, it is. And I sense like the frustration to some extent.
Yeah, totally.
It's so yeah, for me it was one, gratitude, right?
Nice.
Gratitude for
Yep.
the people that stayed here, right, in the States, and
Right.
they're helping to keep my family
Yep.
uh, running as I was away. Gratitude for the people that whose lives, their lives, like the I mentioned the nuns, but the people working on that mission, on that particular mission, they're on mission is to work with those girls. So it's like gratitude for them.
Right.
That's not only they are helping with shelter, they are helping with education, they are also providing love and care to those kids, right? So it's gratitude for them. And it's grounded. It's not that I feel that the guilt we need to kind of call it is like you build the self-compassion, you do
Right.
whatever you can do, but yes, you need to be like aware of the emotions. And I'm like, okay, I need to find a way, whatever I do that brings sustainability to
Right.
my work, it also needs to be purpose driven. So you can insert, like I mentioned, three takeaways: the pause, the reflection, the reframing, right, of emotions. um, I also mentioned about sometimes you need to see like things that you don't think it's fantastic, you see from different lens, so you can understand that it's not perfect, but it's already an improvement. So let's celebrate the improvement, particularly when you are coming from something that's really hard, like a very difficult and
Yep.
complex problem, and you see the improvements, that's problem, right, of creating a solution for that particular problem. um, so it's like the frustration is, oh, it's good. I don't think it's bad
Yeah.
that we have that eagerness to anxiety to some extent, because you can reframe that when controlled, when it's not something that's actually can become something to get you stuck. Anxiety can actually power you,
Yep.
like empower you to take action, right?
Yep.
And here is my action: go check out Tracking for Kids Mozambique.
Mhm.
um, the lingering effects, I think it's, if you want, like for anyone, right, going on a vacation trip, whatever you're doing, perhaps try to do some journaling.
Yeah.
And if you are able to journal, right, even with your pictures, just think about what's happening with you in that particular moment. Because sometimes you, by journaling, it's kind of you are creating more memories that you can kind of pick from when something happens in your life, when you are going into a meeting that is challenging for you,
Yeah.
right? Or when you are working on a project where there is a lot of disconnect, right? You don't feel that there is a flow. Can you bring those emotions back, like from the moments you had that you can consider happy moments, right? And understand, what can I do? You can only control one person
Right.
at a time, yourself, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So, what can I do to actually help the people around me to reconnect? Right. So then it goes back to some of the principles of boundless leadership, compassionate leadership, where you think about you put like you're developing empathy, but it's not that you are uh, suffering with the other. It's
Right.
more that you acknowledge what's happening with the person across from you, and you can think about your intention is to find ways to uplift that person. And that does not mean, I know that you see that I'm switching the topic from like the key takeaways, right, and the
Yeah.
lingering effects. So as if you manage people, right, and you are on this situation, you are either on a team meeting or delivering or checking on performance goals, can you find a way to go beyond the check the box numbers and think of, are there any skill gaps that could be filled, so this person can improve, can be successful on this particular project? And sometimes is the person like this person's purpose, like, and skills, like more than the skills, it's like, is this person being Like, is it the right fit? Could this person be excelling somewhere else? And what's the pathway to help that person get there? Right. So that's like, again, it's not just about check the box. Let's see
Right.
what, of course, you do need to have discipline on your
Right.
project. You need to have a diligence. So, but it's very easy, right, to see, and I saw that so many times, that people managers, for example, which are sometimes in leaders, that are sandwiched
Yep.
between results and the team
Yes.
asking them
Yep.
for support. That when the company results, or like the clients are happy, I'm the perfect manager.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong, that's the moment you really need to tap into those memories, or anything that can really bring to you, well, we are here as a team. It's accountability, right, of the
Mm.
team. It's not about the blame game, right? It's about what can I do to actually understand, number one, the situation, and work towards solving, right, if there is a solution, right,
Yeah.
in place. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Is it helpful?
It does. It on some level, it makes me think about the incentive structure for a volunteer versus an employee or a manager. You know, when you're volunteering, you have a different set of incentives. Like, you are looking for these ways in which you can help people create a better path forward for themselves. But when you're a manager, you are up against barriers. You are up against certain sets of numbers or quotas or production standards. It's it must be interesting to be able to flip, but I can see how volunteering would help you in those areas. Like, okay, how do I really put this person in the right position?
Yes, yes, it does. And again, I think the volunteering, the filling up your
Right.
energy
Right.
tank, it's like, it's, even if you are physically exhausted sometimes,
Yeah.
it's like, it makes you feel that you were part of something, that your
Yep.
family is bigger, your
Yep.
community is bigger,
Yep.
right? And that whatever you're doing, the, let's say, the small ocean in a drop is making a
Yep.
difference to someone, right? Now that's and you when I went to go beyond the volunteerism. So you can, even, I mentioned, like, you are on a family vacation, you're creating your memories, you can use that moment to start developing some awareness. And again,
Mm.
I do believe meditation helps me as a person, but I don't think meditation is something like everybody needs to find their own path, and meditation is something that you need to practice. Sometimes I'm happy if I can do 10 minutes the most. And why do I, and one on, like, you can sing on those
Right.
communities, you see them in a very difficult situation from your eyes, right, from your
Right.
eyes, you're like, how can someone live like that?
Yep.
That's your preconception. And they are singing of gratitude. And they are singing, saying that where you go, in their own, like, language, where you go, you take a piece of my heart with you. Like, you carry me on your heart.
Right.
So those are things, when I talk about energy tank, uh, you will have that smile, or you have that circumstance that you ground you to what's really relevant, and as we live as, like, as people, right?
Yeah. It, it blows, like, it's such a disparity, not only in geography, but in different ways that live our lives. Like, how do you explain the concept of life insurance to somebody in Kenya? Like that's like a foreign concept to them. But over here, we're just bickering back and forth about it,
Well,
right?
I will explain the same way
Okay.
that I would explain here. So
Okay.
when I think about, now you're bringing me back to okay. So when I think about um, uh, insurance, I
Okay.
usually, instead of talking about the product itself, I think about what does that do? Like, what is the purpose of
Right.
that particular product? And
Okay.
I cannot say anything else than protection, right? You're protecting that person against um, if like the loss of life. So you're not leaving your family and what you have built in a way that in a way that they're going to take 10 steps backwards to rebuild their life again, right? You are providing, at least you are removing one roadblock, which is the financial impact of losing a life. But I would just one word: protection.
Yeah.
That's how I think about insurance, and that multiplies on health. That multiply like health, disability, life insurance, and longevity, and the list goes on. Um, I'm going to pause now. Tell me more, because I can jump right away with
Yeah.
on health at work and people. That's another way to volunteer, right? Is with your knowledge and with your expertise, and then I think we can. I can talk a little bit about the upcoming health at work,
Yeah.
and if you want, if there is any of the health at work collaborations that you have a question about, right? We can chat about burnout or like gestational diabetes or anything that's the comes to your mind. Please feel free to jump in. How does
Yeah.
that sound? Should I jump into my other way of volunteering?
Yeah. I think it's wonderful. Let's talk a little bit about health and work and people.
All right. So think about the way I see is, let's say that you take a step back.
Okay.
Volunteering has different shapes, right? You can be there in person,
Right.
as we were a few weeks ago, or you can volunteer your time towards sharing your knowledge. As long as you are sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, with the purpose of like, who is benefiting from. And after working many years for large corporations, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to improve the alignment between my mission, my purpose, and my actions. And that's how Health at Work and People started. I wanted to create, knowing that sometimes employees are not able to properly advocate for
Right.
themselves. I looked into top health risk concerns, right, or health or well-being concerns that impacts employees, and I bring data to it. So usually, so those are collaborations, publications that I have on LinkedIn. Um, it started with cardiovascular diseases. I think that was one of the, other than digital healthcare, but it started with one of the top causes of death globally, right? When cardiopathy, and I usually, what I do is, why should you care? And by
Mm.
you, what are the numbers behind it? What happens? What is the, are there inequities when you think about the certain diseases, right? Are there inequities to be considered that we need to be aware of? What happens if employers do nothing? Is this something that they can that they can just say, this is not my responsibility, which is fair. Like, there, I'm not saying promoting that employers needs to act on every single piece of your health and well-being. They need to prioritize to be, they are also running a business. But where are the key actions that employers can take and is still like continue to be sustainable, and that goes into what best practice could look like. And usually I split between awareness, education, and care. And within care, it's not just about offering healthcare, but it's also about cultural shifts, right? We just
Yeah.
talked of like one of the, so that's like in a nutshell before I go into the topics, the nitty gritty of the topics. So Health at Work, it's a newsletter that was created back late in 2022. It serves two purposes. One is a self-advocacy tool for employees to use that and perhaps have a conversation with their companies, with their corporations on actions that they could be taking. So it's as simple as, let's say that you are one of the individuals that are passing through like menopause as a life stage. You can take that collaboration that was focused, Health at Work collaboration that was focused on menopause and has the data driven, the why, how to take action, and say, is there anything that we can do on this list? What, and the other thing that I want to mention is it's good to have as a baseline, but if I'm sitting on the employer side, I can look at what best practice looks like. I can look at benchmarking. But the question that I should be asking is, what exactly is impacting my workforce?
Mm.
What are the top health risk concerns for my workforce? When I think about hospitals and burnout within healthcare
Yeah.
workers, what exactly is driving that burnout? Like, what are the misalignment between purpose and action, or activities, day-to-day activities, or the way the business is running, or the way the culture is running? So it's not I solve with one action,
Right.
right? That's why you need to ask the question and understand what exactly is impacting your workforce. But let's say that you are someone, as I said, like you are a senior. I mentioned menopause because this was launched last year, where maybe slightly before the boom of everybody talking
Right.
about menopause, which is fantastic because it just makes the conversation more normal, right? Then
Yeah.
it's a life stage. We just need to figure out how to best serve 50% of the population, that if they are lucky enough, they will be there at some point in their lives.
Yeah.
Um, and get that resource, share. And that's like, I was on a I will give you why I mentioned menopause. I was on a party with a few friends, and one of them said, I got your Health at Work collaboration on menopause, and shared with my CHRO, and had a very good conversation on what can we do about it. So it made me happy.
Good.
Right? And on the other side, not every single corporation will be able to do it all, but you can start asking, you can leverage the vendors you have now to act on those different top health risk concerns, right? Instead of having a more passive relationship with your vendor. That's another avenue if you don't have money to invest in additional offerings, right? Um, And then, if you let me pause before I go on, because I was also planning to talk a little
Yeah.
bit about how I think about bringing inclusion into benefits offerings, and the third, like, and how I think about building an offering that really is people centric.
Yeah. I would, for a moment, maybe we could dig down a little bit deeper on life stages in the workplace. With an aging demographic that we see here, like that's a big part of what's happening. And one thing I really noticed about your newsletter is really comprehensive. There's a lot of information that you do go into. Hey, this is why it's important for people that might be in the C-suite to take a look at the real effects on productivity. You know, if you have someone at home that's going through a certain stage of life, that person's probably not going to be as productive as someone that's 20 or 22. And, just getting rid of that person that might be 50 or 55, like that might look good in a boardroom, but that's going to cause a lot more problems when you start getting rid of people that have
That does not
experience.
look good anywhere. Discrimination against age does not
I
look
know,
good
right?
anywhere. With regards to longevity, I think I had a recent post on that, just reacting on a very good paper that I read. I believe like the data set us free, right?
Right.
And we have this beautiful. When I think about longevity, I think that I'm trying to remember his name, so I apologize if I don't remember now. I can share his report afterwards. But I've seen several on the same line that made me reflect, which is knowledge nowadays. If you happen to have access to good technology, you have access to knowledge. Knowledge does not translate into experience and
Right.
wisdom, and
Well said.
knowing how to use that knowledge at the right time. So the way I see different life stages, and the wisdom does not come necessarily from the older generation to the younger generation. It should be like I don't I should say that it should be cross generations,
Mm,
right? But with experience comes the opportunity for you to actually coach others. So that's one, mentor others. It's improves we talk all the time about skills and learning, like learn it all instead of know it all cultures. So to learn it all, right, to be on that position that you are always learning, people, as even if you have 20, 30 years of experience, of professional experience, it's also your mindset of I don't know it all, I can always learn. And what the employers could do is map, right, what are these skills gaps that maybe that generation was not exposed to, how you can close those gaps. So if you close the gaps, you have a population that continues to be even in different stages of life. I think um, so the next topic for health at
yeah.
work is focus on caregiving, and I will tell more about that. But think about someone who is now, the kids are off,
Yep.
they still, like, of course you are, if you are on my generation, you are caring for your parents and you are caring for your children if you happen to have children. So you are sandwiched on your personal life, and if you happen to be a people manager responsible for others careers and success at work, you are also on that sandwich at
Mm,
work as well, right?
yep.
So when, like, when my kids are off to college, like if I happen to have the kids going off to college, how many, I have way more time to actually, and I'm careful with what I'm going to say next, because I say this as an observation. You actually have more time to dedicate to certain projects, or like you have the opportunity to risk a little more,
Right.
right? If you have, again, everyone has its own circumstance that they are dealing with, but you have that. I have someone in mind that I observed that she was like a fantastic employee while like while raising her kids, and once the kids were off to college and etc., she actually, on top of becoming on top of what she was already doing well, she was able to risk and grow and get more responsibilities, right? So it's when you say, oh, I'm on a different stage, the different stage has to do with what's that person's circumstances and what the time they have available, being very
Yep.
practical, and what really drives joy, right? What is the, like, whatever they are doing, are they do they have that beautiful alignment between purpose and action?
Yeah, I think it speaks to the complexity of stages of life and being fortunate. I can't help but think of when we talk about being sandwiched in between our parents and our children or in the workplace. Is that something that you see as a big difference in culture? Is that it seems to me in the Western world, there's not a whole lot of intergenerational living. Sometimes there's not a whole lot of intergenerational relationships. And there's a lot of wisdom and healthcare that happens in that relationship and that intergenerational living. Maybe you could speak to that for just a moment.
Unpack a little more, George.
Okay.
Unpack.
Okay. So it seems to me that I live with my in-laws and my wife and my daughter. And my
Okay.
daughter's 11, and like the amount of wisdom that happens between my in-laws and my daughter is a relationship that I don't have. So there's a certain sort of expectation for my wife and me to be responsible for my in-laws when they get older. Like they have done lots of cool things for us. And so there is a expectation that this is what a family does. My family, when I grew, my parents got divorced. There's not that expectation there. Like they moved on with their own lives. And I see that in a lot of the people that I went to school with. It seems in the Western world, we send our old folks to an institution, to a home. We send our kids to a school, and then we go off to work. But in other cultures, it seems more holistic. Like there is more of a cultural foundation for we stay together as a family. So does that kind of unpack it a little bit?
Yes, it does. And I will add one more cherry on top. Sometimes it's out of necessity that you live together, right? Let's be
Yes.
honest.
Yeah.
Because if you are if if you are living more than your assets can hold,
Yes.
right? So
Yep.
that's one. You may need, there will be no choice.
Right.
And sometimes you will make it do by having, by develop. It's not just a compassion, because it's beyond that. It's like
Right.
being practical. It's better for us to live together,
Yeah.
right? Than like funding for separate housing.
Yeah.
Um, you have also, and that's the beauty of, remember you asked me about longevity.
Yeah.
If you're lucky enough to continue, like every individual needs to know what, if they have the luxury of choosing whether or not to stop working on a, let's say, on a corporation, and
Right.
maybe dedicate their time to
Yep.
something else that's um, whatever retire, if you want to call that retirement. Because I think now there is no retirement to the old sense of I'm doing nothing. No, I'm
Right.
doing things that I really love, and I see so many people flourishing at that state and doing good, right?
Yeah.
Um, so the way I will bring us back to
Yeah.
the to employers, right? Recognizing that the sandwich generations happen, and that if nothing is done, you will have your employee, for example, spending hours to find a healthcare professional for their kids or for their elders, or they may need to take the people that they are responsible for to a doctor's appointment, right, or
Yep.
to other chores. If you don't have, if your employer, on the other hand, is able to identify those roadblocks for people to be actually focused at work,
Yeah.
right? Because again, in the end, you do want to have, uh, you need people that can deliver on your business
Yep.
strategy, on your business values, and etc. So if you can remove those obstacles with, for example, flexible working schedules, um, not just saying you have a flexible working schedule, but actually empowering people to take other things that come to mind is advocacy services within your healthcare provider. So could you have advocates that you actually able to match the care you need versus like the healthcare professional, right? And things like we did, I did implement, but it was, let's say, enabled during COVID. Like
Okay.
we had actual caregiving.
Yeah.
If I have an emergency at home and I don't have someone, like, and I would need to stop working to care for someone, like for either an elder or a children, like one of my children, um, that I have someone coming to my house, someone of trust that will be able to stay with my family. And by doing that, I would be able to stay at work, knowing, stay focused, present at work, knowing that there is someone caring, like for the for the people that I love. So those are things that come to mind. There
Yeah.
is way more than that. Oh, as I was saying, and I'm looking at the clock now. The next, the another point on longevity has to do, and connections, goes back to the U.S. General Surgeon report
Mm.
last year on loneliness and isolation.
Mm.
It's like building connections. It's something that we will, as human beings, like hopefully we will keep going back to the same point.
Yeah.
Virtual, or you need to find a way to build those connections. Like that's my own version. I don't see us being alone, right? Completely alone and well. I see us as connected beings. We are
Yeah.
part of an ecosystem. So
Yep.
as such, we need to, like, more, if as more tools come out to help our kids to really learn what we learned when we are younger. Like not when we are younger, but what we learned. I'm still young.
Yeah.
What we learn, and that they will be able to build those meaningful connections across generations, right? Respecting your elder, but
Yeah.
it's more than respect. It's more than like fearing your elder. It's more like loving them and creating a connection, and also identifying ways that, and that they can connect with other human beings in a way that's safe, in a way that will help them to learn something new. The caregiving piece, it's something that employers cannot ignore. In the US, about 91% of people at work are also caregivers. So it's not that I can, so knowing what's really happening with them that are impacting their work, it's relevant, because
Yep.
if employers can alleviate some of the burden that caregivers have, um, they are creating a culture where people will be, I don't know if it's gratitude is the
Mhm.
right word here, but that people will feel cared for.
Yeah.
And being very practical, like I gave a few examples, that they will have the resources and the time taking that would be dedicated as a caregiver, putting on the hands of other people while you can focus at work. right? So
Yep.
that's a win-win in terms of course, you need to prioritize, you need to figure out what can be launched that's really relevant for your organization and it's sustainable. Because the moment for whoever works on with people, if I give you a lollipop, even if you don't like that lollipop or don't care for that lollipop, if I take that lollipop away, there will be a lot of shouting,
Yep.
right? So it's it what I the joke here is you need the communication needs to be very clear on what you're doing, why you're doing, what's that for, and whether or not that's a forever situation or else, right? So it's like managing again people's emotions at work.
Yeah. It's such a complex situation. But when I read the newsletter, again, it's so comprehensive. You really dig deep into the good people in healthcare, the good people in medicine. They're going out of their way, and you do a great job at explaining the complex situation they're up against that forces them in these situations. Whether it's the pay
Fever,
model.
yeah.
Yes, yeah. Maybe you could dive into that a little bit.
So if we are specific on the collaboration burnout in the healthcare system, so number one, I will tell you why I was on a path of uh, being more like my research path was towards obesity and diabetes. I
Okay.
paused that to bring
Okay.
back burnout. And it was as a request from my fellow colleagues at the Global Healthcare Leaders Program, an executive program that I have recently finished at Harvard Medical School. Because it was something, so the physicians asked me to, can we reconsider and bring this topic back in a way that, because I have touched upon like burnout
Mhm.
before on a context of mental fitness. But it was really rewarding to see it on a context of an actual industry, right?
Mm.
And in a
Yep.
in a set of professions like that have a direct impact in all of us.
Yep.
Those are the care, like suppose like they are the caretakers of our health, right? So what are we doing that's creating the burnout, right? What is happening on a system and that's creating the burnout? And it's never about victimizing healthcare workers, right? They actually, to be a healthcare professional, I'm always in awe of some of my friends, I can call friends, because the level of resilience that you
Mm.
need to take on a day-to-day basis, it's something that it's something to admire. The point here is, what can we do again to remove roadblocks that would not lead them to be disconnected with why they decided to become healthcare professionals in the first place? So that's it's beyond the talk. It's actually asking the question in a way. I have had the fortune of receiving, like of learning from several chief digital officers
Mm.
from large hospitals in Boston, and they actually went after the data to look into, like, so number one, when you think about these steps, right?
Okay.
So you start by identifying who is impacted by it. Like, just be like, list down who are impacted by that particular issue, who is impacted by burnout. And then you actually move into measuring what are the root causes of the burnout. It has to do with, I'm spending too much time to enter health records in the system and less time looking and creating contact with the patient. Am I spending what they call PJ time after work to be dedicated to now send emails, like respond
Right.
to emails? or things like I'm spending too much time on claims that were declined by the healthcare, like by the payers, right? Or prior authorizations. So there are a few, when you go down into like the level of what's really burning them, like, can I remove some of that? And sometimes, because specifically because we are talking about are having this conversation on technology,
Right.
the thought was, what is the technology in this case? I already know my like some of my root causes. What is the technology that can be of help here? Not the other way around. Just a pause. There is no such a thing as what is your AI strategy. There is, I have a problem, I will find a solution. And if the solution is leveraging the power of like AI to help address some of what I have just mentioned, like capturing some of the hospitals now are like piloting, capturing voice to text in a way that the systems can properly understand, um, and creating think about our lives, creating intelligent meeting notes, or responding to patients inquiries, at least have the draft that the doctor can then verify, validate, and send it out. So that's like, start with asking what is driving, and then look bigger, because in the healthcare system it's also um, the frustration sometimes that I heard over and over, that you gotta attend X amount of patients per day,
Right.
right? So that the whole concept of, it's not, I don't want to blame anything or everything on fee per service. It's more the business model. It's
Right.
like, how can we take the waste out of different parts of the healthcare system so the doctors can actually be focused on their patients, have a holistic view of what's going on with their patients as opposed to per body parts, right? That care coordination that's so needed, and particularly with chronic illness. Um, so looking into who is impacted, what is the root cause, then you start listing, like you start putting together what are the different what I call solution mapping. What can change, looking at culture, looking to ways of, which is like ways of working, right? Your day-to-day interactions with people, how people managers are trained, for
Mhm.
example, right? And you look into what are the, like, what's offered to those employees, like, to relieve some of the problems that I have. So it's not just, what I'm trying to say is,
Mhm.
it's not just technology, it's not just culture, it's not just, it's not just one piece. It's looking holistically
Yeah.
what can be done to address those different issues that you have identified by talking to impacted stakeholders, by looking into the data in different formats and shapes. And then from there, let's say I have 10, 20 different actions that I could be taking. I need to prioritize. And I need to make sure that all this process is happening in a way that the communication is clear. So people, you're asking a question, you got to get back to them and say, this is what we are doing with the responses, right? You need to be honest about it and transparent about it. And then you create your MVPs, like your minimal, like you implement the hard stuff in small steps, like the complex problems
Right.
and their solutions in small steps. You test. There is, like, for healthcare, it's a little more sensitive than perhaps if I'm selling, if I'm buying a pen, right? I'm
Yeah.
talking about people's lives
Totally.
at risk. So there is a whole care, and you check. Let's say we implement it. You check whether or not that particular action is really driving change, and if not, why not? right? So that continuous curiosity needs to be
Mm,
in place. And it's not similar to when we think about inclusion, it's not check the box. It's something that you need to have, it needs to be part of the organization, that check on what's impacting, how to
mm,
solve, or what's impacting my client, how to solve, right? Is there anything that, if we don't have, I was just talking with a friend of mine a few minutes ago, and he's already thinking of something that may be viable 5 years from now, right? But he's already um, building the right blocks and building the right resources for that service or product that could be launched 5 years from now. So that's evergreen
mm-hmm.
curiosity paired with action needs to be part of the equation. I think does it and on burnout again, it's not just about day-to-day activities. Be curious about whether what you're doing with your employees, like, are your employees' purpose
Yes.
aligned with their action? Right, I think, and that's I it's also a work that each individual needs to do. Right? It can be facilitated by the employer. Why not? Why not, when I think about mental fitness, have that reflection on purpose driven mission, right? And kind of bring back the joy of why I'm doing what I'm doing, who is impacted by it.
Yeah, it's brilliant in so many ways. I heard a quote a while back that said, "Employees treat the customers the way they're treated by the people at the highest levels." And when we start seeing it through that lens, when we look at it purely from a business standpoint of view, you're kind of taking the care out of healthcare, right? And I've seen countless videos and talked to doctors that say, you know what, I can't do it anymore. Like I'm not gonna. I love medicine. I love helping people, but I can't do it anymore because I don't feel like I'm helping. And that's a real tragedy when we see the people that have signed up their life to learn about how to helping people saying it doesn't work. I can't do it. Like that's a real tragedy. But one thing I really love about the things that you're saying is you're providing solutions, like your friend that you spoke to. Also, in your newsletter, you spoke about a potential shift into values and outcomes and like this whole new model that's really exciting. It's kind of emerging as we talk right now. You can see this new world developing. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Um, you're referring to value-based care or
I
out
am, yes.
culture shift?
Well, I think
Okay.
that, yeah, go ahead.
Um, so the value bit, like on the, I'm trying to go back in memory. So when I talk about the business model, similar to what you have just shared, it's not, the data is out there, right?
Right,
That fee per service model, it's, and there's, I need to have 10 minutes with a patient
right.
and that's it. How in 10 minutes? And if you're doing that over and over and over, um, how you would be able to really develop like the whole compassionate care for your patient. So that's like, it just does not make sense,
Right.
right? For the type of what they are aiming to deliver. And the other point that came several times is like, I think I mentioned that the
Yes.
care coordination, how you're really be interested in learning different, that's the, hopefully we will evolve in technology
Yeah.
so it will be easier for physicians to more and more to see red flags relate, not necessarily I'm going to see a heart doctor,
Right.
but I happen to have another issue not necessarily related to the heart, right? That could be impacting what I'm feeling
Mm,
now, right?
right.
If the doctors are not talking, if there is no care coordination system, that's a heart doctor would not know, what's happening and what was the treatment path or etc. So uh, hopefully I'm trying not to lose because the thread.
It's
Um,
perfect.
but when you think about value-based care, that the shift from fee-for-service to value-based care, it's actually looking into, and there are several companies doing a good work on that front. It is still in embryonic stage, but
Right.
it's that concept that I can be measured not on how many patients I have seen per day, but what was the value added
Yeah.
through the care, like through the entire care. And I like to again, it's focus on the patient, improvement of health, as opposed to um, that 10 minutes visit,
Yep.
right? So in that sense, it's like when you think on the consulting side, right? You have projects that you have per hour, you have your per hour fee, and you have projects that you treat as, when I deliver this outcome, I will receive this amount, right? I'm just like business model shift. So one, I'm doing a per hour thing that sometimes, why I'm mentioning those two models, because the fee per service, it's not necessary. It may work in certain situations, right? But if you have a condition that requires different specialists working together, and you have one, like your improvement of health, it's not necessarily dependent on one single like source. My project, like the out where I will add more value to that client, is to see, instead of that one time check up with one doctor, that I will see the entire value that was
Mm.
added by interconnecting with several doctors, right? Or, and I mentioned doctors
Yep.
here, let me just take a step back,
Yeah.
healthcare professionals. So that's the, like, and I don't want to go, I'm
Yeah.
not an expert on
Right.
value-based care, the
Right.
actual math, but it's just like the way I think is per hour, per fee per service, versus now, instead of my, I will be measured on the outcome
Yeah.
that of that on a deliverable, which could be, I'm delivering better health. That particular patient has now improved from point A to point B. That is like the measure of, um, that's the value that has been added by what I'm doing.
It just seems like such a better definition of wellness when you look at that whole picture and you see more people coming in to help service and be part of it. I think on some ways it's a good bridge to building inclusive offerings and whatnot. But I wanted to bring it up because it's really one of the first times I got to take a look at this value-based sort of medicine is in your newsletter. And again, that's what I think sets so much of your work apart, is that you're offering solutions and you're giving people a lens into the fixes that are on the horizon right there. So I'm thankful for doing that. But yeah, maybe we could talk, maybe we'll shift gears and talk about the building inclusive offerings.
All right. Let's wrap up them with the
Okay.
building of inclusive offerings.
Okay.
So, without getting very technical, but doing so, if you are on the, if you are building, let's say, healthcare, right? A healthcare, if you're designing a healthcare program for your employees, um, so I would do two things. I will focus on employee benefits, and then we can just wrap
Yeah.
up with inclusion and measuring inclusion and belonging and etc. But if you are thinking about, if you if you want your offerings to be inclusive of our employees, you need to understand what are the needs of the diverse groups of populations that you have, right? So what I have had the opportunity to develop with my team in prior roles is what exactly inclusion looks like for healthcare, for someone who is it offering same-sex coverage? Is it offering surrogacy benefits? So I don't, instead of jumping into the solutions, we need to go back to the basics and actually go after like different groups of employees and understand from them what are the roadblocks, going back again, what are the roadblocks for success, and acting upon the ones you believe your company should be acting upon, right? And what comes to mind, one of the global, so it means that you have a system in place. And this is in one of my prior editions, I actually go through every single step of that process. You're starting with how to capture the voice, the different voices on your organization, the voice of the employee, the voice of the employer, the voice of the market, right? How to bring the three together. And once you have that, let's say that you have, I will give you an example. You have periodical meetings with representatives of your D&I groups, like women's health, or like, or LGBTQ plus, and etc. And you listen to things that they are paying the same, like they are paying premiums for their care, but they are not getting the care that they need. So they feel on themselves that could there be a solution that will address my circumstance? So I'm paying here for the majority that does not have the same issue that I have. Like it's not serving me. And I will give you, I think one of the examples is a little more like in terms of severity, it's low severity, but it can create a high impact on that individual's life, like GAT coverage, right? And I'm talking, usually it's US and global, right? US is a little more advanced in certain, in certain coverages that are related to the different groups of employees. So can you create, let's say, as part of your design, so now you're looking into design of different offerings, you're looking into LGBTQ plus, and you're looking into healthcare. What are the coverage that's not offered to this group and would be relevant to them? Could it be that your marriage leave, and that was a real situation, is asking for a marriage certificate in a country that does not allow for same-sex marriage? So even when you have the offering, you got, or like we had the GAT coverage in a certain country outside of the US, and we learned afterwards that there are so many requests asked by the healthcare payer, like the healthcare vendor, that this particular employee was waiting for 4 years, 3 to 4 years, if not mistaken, just answering questions that were not really part of the process. So they are making it so difficult that the employee does not use the care, right? So you create what is the principle, what exactly you are trying to cover, like you learn what the gaps are in terms of care, and you're looking to health, wealth, and well-being, right? Because that's like well-being, including ways of working and what's missing. And within that context, if you are working on benefits offerings, for example, you start narrowing down where the gaps are, and then decide, do I want to have this gap closed or not? What problem I'm going to solve? is this aligned with the values that I, as a company X, Y, and Z, voice? Right. So there is a whole, like, as I said, it's the voice of the employee, the voice of the market, um, and the voice of the business.
Yep.
So that's like, once you have those three together, you can start putting, like, really, I use it to have a roadmap, like a heat map, where I could see in different design principles where I have been able to close that, my team and I, like, where we were able to actually close that gap. And then we would measure, like, the next step is to measure the impact
Hmm.
for people, and that could be like menopause is another good
Yeah.
one, or mental health.
Yep.
Like mental health, again, it's not just about, it's fantastic that you're creating the access, but you also need to understand where it's coming from. Because if you are creating, if you're putting your employees in a toxic environment, or in an environment that they don't feel like they don't feel cared for, valued, and they don't feel that they are really creating a contribution that aligns with their purpose, you are going to have mental health, mental
Yep.
fitness issues.
Yep.
Right. So that process of going into, and the inclusive comes, and why it's important to measure, because if you don't measure, you will come back to the same routine of saying, oh no, I'm covering 80%. If you're not asking the diverse pockets of your population on where the unmet needs are, right? It's like, it's the awareness. It doesn't mean
Mhm.
that your company will be able to act in every single ask, right? But at least it's the awareness that needs to be out there, and sometimes it's just a matter of better communicating what's offered, right? um so let me pause, because this is another, like, we could take another hour
Yeah.
just talking about that. So my recommendation,
Yeah.
yes, if you have interest in volunteerism, right, look at my one of my latest posts, learn about tracking for kids. I'm happy to discuss how I have implemented volunteering time of, not just in the US but globally. Like, and again, when I say, I understand it takes a village to get
Yeah.
something that, like that, in place. It takes a lot of stakeholders that are, and CEOs that are willing to make a stand. Um, then the second block, we talked about health at work. The collaborations is out there. It's a comprehensive paper. So if you don't care about the data, the why we are talking about it, what's the impact of we do nothing, go straight to the recommendations and see if any of those solutions fit within the problem you have. Or if you are not the solution, like if you're not part of the group that actually is acting on a solution, if you are an employee and any of those health risk concerns impact you, you can use that as a tool to just say, hey, is this something we have in our company to be curious about? Then the third block is when you're creating any product. I mentioned about people offerings because it's something that insurance and people offerings and
Mhm.
etc. Because it's something that I have worked throughout my life. You do need to do the homework to understand exactly what is the problem you're solving for, and when you're looking into what is the problem you're solving for, make sure that you include different pockets of people, right, that are usually that sometimes are forgotten or left behind. And then you can start solving for the like, you will prioritize and you will start to solve for those groups. And there are so many examples that sometimes by fixing, like by helping certain groups of our population, think about disability, for example,
Yep.
the keyboard that we are using today, the voice to text, a lot of the technology that is out there benefiting all of us came from I need to solve for this particular roadblock that someone with a disability has to be at their best selves. So having you will be benefiting the whole when you are curious enough to look into the hard problems, and then monitor, measure what really matters. Right? Don't create a problem, like don't create your product without thinking, oh, what type of metrics will really measure success to the people that will use this product, right? And that's something another hour of our work could be taking, because that's one of the pitfalls and the reason why I decided in the first place to launch wellbe consulting was so many vendors that I have to vet, I had to work with, were missing the ball on what's relevant to measure. They have fantastic clinical metrics, but they are missing the professional, the performance component of their metrics. And that's, I would wrap us up to just say, my next realm of research and study where I will be looking up to people that knows way more than I do on that realm is how emotions can impact our mental fitness throughout the day. That's something that I will start incorporating slowly, but there is a lot to be learned, and fantastic professionals that are working, researchers, scientists that are working on it. That will be our evolution from mental health to mental fitness, when we are actually able to create that awareness and action throughout our days.
That is exciting. The idea that we can begin to really understand our emotions or understand what that is. I'm fascinated. When is that? Maybe we could talk just for a briefly. I know it's never briefly, but the newsletter, is it bi-month? Is it bi-monthly? Is it once a month, or what? When is the next one coming out, and how often do they come out?
So the next one will come out, if all goes well, next week. It will be focused on caregiving, or caregivers. Let me adjust that. And it's something I started the research. Well, I'm a caregiver, right?
Yeah.
But besides that, I started the research a few months ago, just bringing together a lot of good data. And it just happens that last week we had the US general surgeon, right, publishing on like support to caregivers, right? Very, very aligned with what my next briefing, and very good data. So I love that actually took place, and I plan to use that as part of the storytelling. I also plan to look into one segment, which is not a small segment, of caregivers that are actually caring for people with disabilities. So that's like when you think about, okay, caregivers is something that we are talking over and over. Well, there is an extra. When you are a parent of a child with a disability, you are not just a parent. You are a parent, a caregiver, a nurse, a financial planner, a lawyer, an advocate, and the list goes on. So there is a lot to unpack there. So wait for next week.
I'm excited for it. And I think that everybody within the sound of my voice, whether you're watching today or listening in the future, go down to the show notes and check out the newsletter. It's so comprehensive. It's so well done. And I think in this conversation today, you've illustrated to me an incredible amount of mental fitness in order to talk about such a broad subject and put it down into terms where people can understand and get excited about. So thank you very much for being here today and spending some time with me and my audience. And before I let you go, where can people find you? What do you have coming up, and what are you excited about?
People can find me on LinkedIn.
Nice. Right.
I will share my email as well, so you can connect with me if I can be of your help. I'll be happy to. Um, what I'm excited about. I'm excited about what we are doing now.
Yeah.
Right? It's like creating, looking into what excites me is when I have the opportunity to evaluate together with others. Like diversity of thought, it's something real that can really produce a lot of innovation. So having a problem to solve and co-creating that solution and seeing it impacting the life of others, that's what
Yeah.
makes me happy within my professional environment, and within my way of living. When I have the opportunity to have interactions that are meaningful, that I can actually understand, take a moment of pause to understand what I could be doing for others, right, in that like moment, and acting on it and seeing the results of that action. So it's like being attentive to your intentions and motives.
Yeah.
That also brings me happiness. It's a work in progress. We are not. There is no perfection here, right? There are several um, phases to who we are in different situations. So I think it's continue to work and finding the right people along the way, along the journey, that can help me to keep myself true to my values and align it with my purpose.
That's great advice. That's great advice. And I'm really thankful to get to hear it and maybe try to incorporate it into my life as well. I appreciate it. We'll hang on briefly afterward, Jacqueline. To everybody that participated today and is hearing this, thank you so much for being with us. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did. And that's it for the podcast today. And Jacqueline, hang on briefly afterwards. Everyone, thank you so much. That's all we got. Aloha.